This morning, you stopped at a red light. Nobody was watching. No police car, no camera. You sat there anyway, alone, waiting for a colored bulb to give you permission to move. But the real answer to why you waited is far stranger than traffic law. You waited because your brain is running ancient software. Software written long before roads existed. Software designed to make you obey people you have never met, will never meet, and who, in some cases, have been dead for centuries. Why would evolution build a creature that follows invisible commands? Think about your average day. You wear what your workplace expects. You lower your voice in a library without reading a single sign. You stand in line at the coffee shop instead of walking to the front, even when you are late and desperate. None of these rules were explained to you. Nobody sat you down and negotiated. You simply absorbed them, and you follow them with a loyalty most people reserve for family. In 1961, a psychologist at Yale University decided to find out just how deep this loyalty goes. His name was Stanley Milgram. His question was simple and uncomfortable. If an authority figure told an ordinary person to hurt a stranger, would they do it? Milgram recruited volunteers from newspaper ads, regular people, teachers, salesmen, engineers. Each volunteer was told they were part of a memory experiment. Their job was to press a switch that delivered an electric shock to a man in another room every time he answered a question wrong. With each mistake, the voltage went up. The man in the other room was an actor. There were no real shocks. But the volunteers did not know that. They heard him grunt at 75 volts. They heard him complain at 120. At 150 volts, he screamed that he had a heart condition and demanded to be released. At 300 volts, he pounded on the wall. Then he went silent, and the volunteers kept pressing the switch. Not all of them, but 65% went all the way to the end of the board, to a switch labeled 450 volts, past a warning that read danger, severe shock. 65% of ordinary people, delivering what they believed might be lethal electricity to a screaming stranger because a calm man in a gray lab coat said the experiment requires that you continue. Here is the detail most people miss. The man in the lab coat had no power at all. He could not fire the volunteers, he could not find them, he could not touch them. They were free to stand up and leave at any moment, and they would still be paid. The only weapon he had was a coat and a steady voice. That was enough. Why? The answer starts millions of years before Yale existed. Your ancestors survived in groups, not because they were strong. Humans are slow, soft, and clawless. A leopard can outrun you. A chimpanzee can overpower you. Your species had exactly one advantage, and it was coordination. 20 humans acting as one unit could bring down a mammoth, hold territory, and raise children who survived. But coordination has a price. Someone decides, and everyone else follows. A group that debated every decision starved. A group that followed a leader ate over thousands of generations. The humans who felt a deep pull to obey the group and its leaders left more descendants than the humans who did not. You are built from the obeyers. Obedience is not your weakness. It is your inheritance. And your brain does not just obey. It obeys automatically, below the level of thought. In 1951, a decade before Milgram, a psychologist named Solomon Asch ran a quieter experiment that might be even more unsettling. He showed people a simple card with lines on it and asked which two lines were the same length. The answer was obvious. A child could see it. But Asch surrounded each real participant with actors who all confidently gave the same wrong answer. Then he watched what the real person did. 75% of participants denied their own eyes at least once and agreed with the group. Some later said they knew the group was wrong but went along anyway. Others said something stranger. They said the group's answer had actually started to look correct. Their perception itself had bent. Read that again. Not their manners, not their politeness, their eyesight. The presence of a unanimous group can reach into your visual system and edit what you see. What chance do you have against pressure you cannot even detect? Now connect the two experiments. Asch showed that you conform to equals. Milgram showed that you submit to authority. But modern life has done something neither man could have predicted. It has made the authority invisible. The person who decided your speed limit is a stranger. The person who wrote your office dress code may have left the company years ago. The person who decided that forks go on the left has been dead for centuries. You are not obeying people anymore. You are obeying ghosts, and your brain cannot tell the difference. To the ancient machinery in your skull, a rule is a rule, and a rule implies a rule giver, and a rule giver implies consequences. So you feel a small spike of anxiety when you jaywalk on an empty street. You feel a flush of embarrassment when you realize you are underdressed at a party. That feeling has a name in evolutionary terms. It is the fear of exile. For your ancestors, being rejected by the group was not sad, it was fatal. Alone on the savannah, a human lasted days. Your brain still treats social disapproval as a survival emergency, which is why public embarrassment can feel worse than physical pain, and why brain scans show that social rejection activates some of the same neural regions as a physical injury. But maybe you think this is all history. Maybe you think people were simply more obedient in 1961, in the age of hats and hierarchy, and that modern people would refuse. A psychologist named Jerry Berger tested exactly that. In 2009, at Santa Clara University, he rebuilt Milgram's experiment with modern ethical limits, stopping at 150 volts, the point where the man in the other room first screams to be let out. In the original study, nearly every person who passed 150 volts went all the way to the end. So Berger measured how many modern participants would cross that line. The result? 70%. Statistically identical to 1961. Nearly 50 years of civil rights movements, individualism, and question authority bumper stickers had changed the number by almost nothing. The software does not update. It just runs. There is one more twist, and it is the one that matters most. Milgram's volunteers did not obey because they were cruel. Recordings show them sweating, trembling, begging the experimenter to check on the victim. Some laughed uncontrollably from stress. They were not monsters enjoying power. They were ordinary people in agony, pressing the switch anyway. Milgram called the mechanism the agentic state. In plain English, it means this. The moment you accept someone as a legitimate authority, your brain quietly transfers ownership of your actions to them. You stop feeling like the author of what your hands are doing. You become an instrument. The volunteers were not thinking, I am hurting this man. They were thinking, the experiment is hurting this man. That single mental handoff is how ordinary people have participated in history's darkest chapters, while feeling, sincerely, that they were just following orders. So is obedience evil? No. And this is the part that gets left out. The same circuitry that pressed Milgram's switches is the reason surgery works, because an operating room runs on instant, unquestioned coordination. It is the reason planes land safely, why fire evacuations succeed, why a stranger's blood is waiting for you at the hospital. Every large-scale act of human cooperation, every city, every vaccine, every rescue operation runs on billions of people following rules written by people they have never met. Obedience built civilization. It also built its atrocities. It is not a flaw or a virtue. It is a power source. And power sources do not care what they power, which leaves you with the only question that matters. If the pull to obey is automatic, are you helpless? Milgram's own data says no. Hidden in his results is a quiet, hopeful detail. In one version of the experiment, participants watched two other people refuse to continue before making their own choice. Obedience collapsed from 65% to 10%. One visible act of refusal gave everyone who saw it permission to refuse too. Disobedience, it turns out, is exactly as contagious as obedience. The group can bend your perception, but you are also part of the group, and your defiance bends it back. The 35% who walked out of Milgram's lab were not fearless. They were simply people who, at the critical moment, remembered that the man in the lab coat could not actually do anything to them. That is the skill the modern world quietly demands of you. Not rebellion, not cynicism, just the habit of asking one question before you comply. Who is actually asking, and what can they actually do? Most of the time, the answer will be reasonable, and you will follow the rule, and the rule will serve you. Red lights really do prevent collisions. Lines really are fairer than mobs. But once in a while, you will look for the authority behind a command and find nothing there. No consequence, no enforcement, no person. Just a gray coat hanging on a hook and a voice in your head saying the experiment requires that you continue. Tonight, somewhere, you will stop at another red light on another empty street. You will wait, alone, for a colored bulb to release you. And now you will know the truth. You were never waiting for the light. You were waiting for a ghost, one your ancestors invented to keep the group alive, one that lives in your skull and speaks with borrowed authority. The light does not control you. It never did. It just asks. And every single time, without noticing, you are the one who answers yes.